Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the City of Thousand Oaks City Council and Thousand Oaks Redevelopment Agency for Tuesday, July 11th, 2006. At this time, we'll call the regular meeting to order. And would you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Fox?
Here.
Councilmember Bill De La Pena?
Present.
Councilmember Irwin?
Here.
Councilmember Glancy?
Here.
Mayor Gillette?
Here. Thank you. Item 4, special announcements and a request for continuance of any public hearing or agenda item. We have one, item 9A, the Camino Manzana's traffic control issue is pulled and rescheduled for 7/18, July 18th. Are there any others? There being none. Special presentations. We have a series of special presentations this evening, and so I'm going to come down and use the podium for these. So, thank you. I've asked Councilwoman Jackie Irwin to join me at the podium this evening as our special representative to sports teams, etc. This is particularly unique, and we'll give her an opportunity to play a role in this tonight. Tonight we have 5 special presentations. Number 1, water polo teams. Tonight we are presenting a commendation to 17 very special young men and their adventurous coaches. We're pleased to welcome the Clonard water polo team. They've traveled from Belfast, Ireland to visit with families in Newbury Park, Thousand Oaks, and other local water polo teams. The Clonard water polo team was founded in 1921. That was just shortly after I was born. This team has a tradition of being winners. They have been champions 29 times and have won the Junior Cup more times than any other club in Ireland. In addition to their sports ability, I understand 2 of these boys are very talented at playing the Irish whistle. Let me introduce the coaches from Clonard who will be accepting tonight's commendations and be able to tell us more about tonight's musicians. Henry Johnson and Kevin Armstrong. Would you both join me up here at the podium, please? Please.
Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. Thank you very much for inviting us here and for organising us a visit to this beautiful civic centre. We're all very glad to be here in this beautiful city. The welcome we've received has been beyond our expectations. The hospitality of the host families has been extraordinary. They've looked after our boys very, very well. The teams we have played have given us a great welcome. We'd like to thank also especially the coaches, Mike, Mark, and Dana, and Mark and Natalie for all their organisations. Last year, Mark's team that came to Belfast from this area brought a breath of fresh air to water polo in Ireland, and it inspired many of our young players and encouraged us to make this trip. And we're very glad we did. We see this very much as a process of building our young players' experience in water polo and meeting different people throughout the world, and we hope to do it more and more again. And we hope that the players from this area will come back to Ireland and give us a chance to return the hospitality. We would like to introduce two of our players who will play an Irish jig for you on the tin whistle. It's Stephen Loughran and Graham Flanagan.
Boys, before you start, just give me 1 minute, please. Could I ask Casey Graham, the Newbury Park coach, Mike Giles, Thousand Oaks coach, Mark Garrett, Ventura Coast coach, and Natalie Garrett, the trip coordinator, come down and join everybody down here at the podium, please. Boys? Yeah. That's fun. Thank you, gentlemen. That was absolutely wonderful. Henry, Kevin, would you please introduce the rest of the team, and then following, we will have a photo with City Council, and we have a little gift for our visitors.
Tony Fitzpatrick. Garrett Johnston. Kevin Johnston. Michael Leverty. Connor Johnston, Connor Keary, Stephen Murphy, Kieran McGlue, Ross McCumish, Daniel Gallagher, Graham Flanagan, Kieran McKeever, Stephen Loughran, Paul Armstrong, David Murnahan, Declan Neeson, Kieran Ferguson and Paul Murphy.
Kevin, you might want to arrange them.
Did you get the coaches too, Jackie?
Wait, you don't have the mayor.
No, and I'm going to get there. I'm going to promise you, I'm going to get there in just a minute. All right. Now that I have your attention, it's my honor to present this commendation in honor of the Clonard Water Polo Team. The Clonard Water Team was founded in 1929 in West Belfast, Ireland, in the community of Clonard to teach swimming and promote water polo, and has approximately 60 members from all over the country. And the team has been the champion 29 times, including the period from 1960 to 1973, when they were champions 14 years in a row. They have won the Junior Cup more times than any other club in Ireland and are still the best in West Belfast. And the team has come to America to promote goodwill and establish relationships with water polo teams of Thousand Oaks and Newbury Park High Schools to build bridges of friendship between the youth of our countries. And Clonard Water Team has provided exemplary service to the youth of Ireland for 85 years and has now established a cultural exchange with Thousand Oaks youth. Now, therefore, I, Dennis C. Gillette, Mayor of the City of Thousand Oaks, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby commend Clonard Water Polo Team and wish them pleasant memories of their visit to Thousand Oaks and continued success as they reach out to the youth of Ireland. At the conclusion of the photo, we know you have to leave, and we say thank you so very much for coming. Godspeed and a safe trip home.
Just go out that way.
I do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep.
Hi, David. Hi, David. How are you? How are you? Okay, for our second presentation this evening, the City Council would like to proclaim July 16th to July 23rd, 2006 as Lou Gehrig's Disease Week. Approximately 5,600 people each year are diagnosed with this debilitating disease. The efforts of groups such as the ALS Association help improve the future of these affected by the disease through fundraisers like the second annual Lou Gehrig Disease Strikeout Tournament. I'd like to announce, I'd like to at this time introduce Fred Fisher, Executive Director of the ALS Association of Los Angeles chapter, to tell us more about the Strikeout Tournament. Please.
Thank you very much. It's nice to see some familiar faces here with us. I want to thank the City of Thousand Oaks for not only for being the host city for our tournament, but for your support in our fight. For those of you that don't know, there's a killer on the loose. It's a serial killer of sorts, striking without warning or provocation. This killer does not discriminate, striking regardless of gender, race, or socioeconomic status. Operating quietly, below the radar, mostly unnoticed. However, if you're over 40 years old, there's a 1 in 800 chance that you will lose your life to this killer. This killer is not merciful, not quick. Death is certain. Death is a slow progression of losses, usually taking 2 to 5 years, robbing you of your ability to move, to swallow, to breathe. Your thoughts remain clear at all times. You know what is happening as it happens. We know the killer's name. You know the killer's name. The killer is Lou Gehrig's disease, otherwise known as ALS. This is not a killer that the police can stop, the FBI can't help. Law enforcement doesn't have the weapons necessary to fight this killer, but we do. Working together, we can fight this killer. The weapons we use are service, research, and awareness. Services like access to wheelchairs, walkers, and other medical equipment, returning mobility to those who have lost the ability to walk. Loans of augmentative communication devices, giving a voice back to those who have lost the ability to speak. And case management, a healthcare professional to guide people through the disease, giving them access to the critical community resources that they need. And all these services provided free of charge. Research into the cause, treatment, and ultimate cure of ALS, with over 100 different research projects currently underway around the world. And awareness. Awareness like the Strikeout Lou Gehrig's Youth Baseball Tournament that brings youth, families, and the community together to raise awareness and funds to fight this killer. If we could show the video to the folks here and at home, this would be a good time.
I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. That I might have been given a bad grade, but I've got an awful lot to live for. Thank you.
this year, more than 300 kids will be populating your beautiful Youth Little League fields, along with their families and other ALS advocates, to play baseball, have a great time, raise awareness of ALS, and raise some money in the process. With us here tonight is resident Patrick McMinn and his family, who lost a family member to ALS. Patrick's also a member of our board of directors and is the chair of the second annual Strikeout Lou Gehrig's Disease Tournament. And standing next to me now is another one of our leaders in the fight of ALS, a fight that is very close and personal to her. So it's my pleasure now to introduce you to Denise Glass.
Thank you. Thank you, council members, for today and recognizing ALS. I'm a resident of Thousand Oaks, and I love it out here. A week ago, I celebrated my 49th birthday. 5 years ago, I thought I would never live to have that celebration. I'm one of the lucky ones with the ALS that has lived longer than the 2 to 5 year life expectancy when given this fatal diagnosis. I've lived more of my life in 4 years than in my prior 45. At diagnosis, my doctor told me to get my affairs in order, spend my money, and see the world before I couldn't, which I started doing 8 months later. First, I had to deal with severe depression and denial, which is common. Since then, I haven't stopped advocating for my chapter by speaking at seminars, conferences, schools, congressional leaders, and teaching rehab students, and writing articles for the chapter newsletter on what it's like living with ALS and how to get through the hard times. I've educated many celebrities, the most recent being James Woods, for his portrait of a doctor with ALS on ER, for which he is nominated for an Emmy. Further, I can't tell you about the fabulous friends I have met being associated with the chapter. I've traveled the world as quickly as I could so I could live my dreams by photographing the Pacific Ocean, going to clown camp, visiting Anchorage for the winter carnival, and seeing Canada's fall foliage. But my number 1 and 2 dreams were going to Antarctica and seeing Paris and Giverny that I was fortunate to do in 04 and 05. I was supposed to go to the Arctic this summer, but had to cancel because of my progression. That is what ALS does to you. Waking up every day, afraid that I will fall on my head or face, which has been the norm for the last 3 months. Yes, you try to act normal in public, but having a speech, swallowing, gait, and balance handicaps are hard to deal with in a world where everyone is too busy with their own lives to help you. You never think it could and would happen to you until this. It's not afraid of dying, it's losing my independence. The tournament is very important to me, their pals and their families. Not only are the kids having fun playing tournament baseball, but we're showing them how good it feels to help those that don't have much time to live by raising money for the Patient Services Department. Also, we're heightening the awareness of ALS so that when the kids meet someone later in their life that has ALS, they won't say, "What is that?" Thank you for recognizing ALS. The ALS Association Greater Los Angeles chapter and the baseball tournament. All good things to you. Thank you.
Denise, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
It's my honor at this time, Denise, to present to you a proclamation in honor of Strikeout Lou Gehrig's disease. The ALS Association is sponsoring in conjunction with the Canal Valley Little League the Strikeout Lou Gehrig's disease All-Star Little League Tournament, July 16th through the 23rd. And Little League All-Star teams Kern, Ventura, Los Angeles, San Bernardino counties will participate in the event, along with free clinics led by former Major League players. And the ALS Association delivers free patient services to people with ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, in Ventura, Los Angeles, San Bernardino counties. And there are currently many Thousand Oaks residents who either have ALS, have lost someone to it, or are currently dealing with a loved one that has the disease. Now, therefore, I, Dennis C. Gillette, Mayor of the City of Thousand Oaks, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim the week of July 16th through the 23rd, 2006, as Strikeout Lou Gehrig's disease, and urge residents to support the tournament and families affected by ALS. Denise, thank you so much for coming down and talking to us.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Denise. Our next presentation will be from Lila Ko, a Ventura County Fair Board member. Leah visited our city last year to present the city with a special gift and tell us about the fair. We're pleased to have you here again tonight. Leah?
Thank you, Mayor.
Welcome.
I'm going to hold up our very beautiful poster. I am a 20-year resident of Newbury Park. I've raised my kids in this fabulous city, and I wouldn't live any place else. Let me show you our poster.
Let's step over by. How's that? Thank you.
Welcome. Our poster this year was, if you look at the poster, you'll see that we have heart, and the theme of our fair this year is the heart of the country. And there is a quilt that was actually made by a young lady named Kim Leach, who works at the fair. She's a long-time worker at the fair. And she made this magnificent quilt that we took a photo of and presented, made our poster. I also have tickets for the council members. And I just wanted to let you know that we have great entertainment. I don't know if you've looked at our website lately, but we have Big Bad Voodoo Daddy. Winona is coming. Bobby Vinton for the seniors. And All-American Rejects, and I don't know who they are. But Foreigner is going to be here, and I'm sure that some of you on the council know Foreigner. We also have Creedence Clearwater Revisited. And of course, we will have our ever-popular racing pigs. So I look forward to seeing each and every one of you at the Ventura County Fair. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Next, we have Eve Liebman, Campaign Division Manager for United Way of Ventura. Eve has appeared here at our council meeting several times in the past. It's nice to see her again. Eve will be recognizing the City of Thousand Oaks' efforts in supporting United Way programs. Eve?
Thank you very much. This is who we are. Thank you very much. Good evening, council members, mayor, city manager. On behalf of United Way of Ventura County, and I'm very delighted to represent United Way as the campaign division director for all the 10 cities of Ventura County. We have over 825,000 people that live in our county, in case you don't know that. And all the cities participate in a fundamentally exciting campaign throughout the year. And I have been very honored to be able to conduct these presentations for all 10 cities, which raise well over $125,000 in benefit of people that live in Ventura County, to assist all our agencies, all our 46 agencies and other partner agencies that help the community 365 days a year. And on behalf of United Way, our staff, our board of directors, our president, David Smith, this plaque that I present to you in honor of you and your generous employees that donate to the United Way campaign fundraising efforts every year. This plaque, and I'd like to read this to you, is presented to the City of Thousand Oaks. United Way of Ventura County is honored to recognize the dedicated employees of the City of Thousand Oaks for their generous commitment in fundraising and support to the community for the year of 2006. And I'm also very honored to also recognize Elena Keenan. I don't know if she's here. I know Mary Leck is here. She's the photographer. She did the campaign last year on behalf of United Way for her leadership efforts in doing this campaign for us. So my heart goes out to all of you for participating with the rest of the 10 cities of Ventura County, and I'm very pleased to congratulate the entire City of Thousand Oaks. Thank you so very much.
Okay.
She does this well.
Oh, okay.
We should mention that United Way of Ventura County has completed negotiation and will be locating a storefront office here in the Civic Arts Plaza in the very near future, and as soon as we have the exact date and everything, we'll announce the hours of operation when people can contact United Way directly right here in our own community. So thank you very much, Eve, and our very best to Dave Smith and your board. Thank you. As our final presentation, I'd like to welcome Fire Department Division Chief Mike LaPlante. Mike will tell us about Fire Prevention Week and our fire department's open house in October. Mike?
Mayor Gillette, members of the council, I'm here actually to talk about those two very issues, and although they're somewhat separate, they really are complementary. First, I'd like to announce, and just sort of a pre-announcement of our Fire Prevention Week, which this year is October 8th through 14th. And this year we plan to make a large splash, as it were, regarding this Fire Prevention Week activity here in Thousand Oaks. I've talked to our Fire Prevention Bureau and our community education folks, and you'll hear more about this as the time approaches, and certainly during the week of October 8th through the 14th. And in support of that, and to put an exclamation point on the final of that week, we've put together a fire station open house program, which at the council's direction and Councilmember Fox's idea was to allow the community to greet their firefighters in a scheduled, announced opportunity. Typically our fire stations are of course open all the time, stop by any time, but we really want to get the word out about this, and we're targeting October 14th, which is the last day of Fire Prevention Week. The plan is to have the fire stations open from 1 o'clock till 5 o'clock in the afternoon. At each fire station we'll have certain displays. We plan to bring out our hazardous materials units, our urban search and rescue units, our wildland firefighting services, and our paramedic services, and highlight those for the community. And it really allows the neighborhood to come and visit their neighborhood fire station, talk to their firefighters, ask questions. hear issues related to fire prevention like we want to do as well. But we're really looking forward to that, and you'll hear more about that as time goes on. So I just wanted to take that short opportunity to touch on both of those. Remember, Fire Prevention Week, 8th through 14th of October, and the open house on the 14th, which will be the end point of that week. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thanks.
Item 7, Redevelopment Agency, Council and Redevelopment Agency Consent Calendar.
Excuse me, Mayor, we have public comments first.
I'm sorry?
Public comments.
Oh, thank you. Item 6, public comments. Would the clerk please call public comments?
This is the time and place for public comments. A speaker card is available for those wishing to address the City Council regarding items on the agenda or on a subject within the city's jurisdiction. All speakers for public hearings shall be called and heard during the public hearing. Pursuant to council standards of operation, the mayor may assist any speaker from straying into areas not within the city's jurisdiction. All remarks shall be addressed to the council as a whole. Remarks directed at a particular council member are not allowed. Under state law, issues discussed under public comments can have no action unless listed on the agenda and may be referred to the city manager for administrative action or scheduled on a subsequent agenda. All documents for city council and the official city records should be presented to the city clerk prior to speaking, allowing dissemination to council and staff. 4 people have presented cards, and pursuant to council direction, speakers are allowed 3 minutes. The yellow light displays when you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. Our first speaker this evening is Carol Nussbaum from Cabrillo Music Theater. There's been a request for 6 minutes of time, and it has been granted. Carol.
City Council members and city staff, I want to thank you for allowing me here this evening. I am Carol Nussbaum, the President and Chief Executive Officer of Cabrillo Music Theater. We are the resident company to the Countrywide Performing Arts Center, musical production company. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of you, the Board of Governors, the Alliance for the Arts, wonderful organizations and terrific people for your unwavering support of Cabrillo, and in fact, all of the performing arts groups here in Thousand Oaks. I am a resident of Thousand Oaks, my family lives here, and we enjoy every moment of our being here. Indeed, this council is always doing good things, because I also wanted to mention I have just witnessed those moving remarks of the ALS group of people. And in honor of this week's Lou Gehrig Week, Cabrillo Music Theater has told them that any member of their society or associated with their society will receive a discount for tickets to view our summer production of The Music Man. You may recognize my companion who's come with me, who has a mind of his own. That's Toto's from last summer's performance of The Wizard of Oz. Toto was among the many talented cast members in last summer's show who made their way into the hearts of our record-breaking audience. Toto and Dorothy enchanted our town with a journey over the rainbow. Now Toto, if he shows up, is back here to help me tell all the citizens of Thousand Oaks of this summer's upcoming production. Here she is. This summer, Cabrillo Music Theater is joyous to present that timeless classic, The Music Man. But don't worry, Toto, there are no wicked witches and no cyclones that you're going to see. Nope, not a one. But I hear there's a clever con artist coming our way, and his name is Harold Hill. He calls himself the Music Man. Well, he says he's a music man, but indeed, He's about to turn that innocent Iowa town upside down with his scheme to tell the citizens they should have a boys' band. We better be mighty careful because I understand he's looking to flee with the money before we ever hear a single note of music. We'll have to see what happens when the town's piano teacher and librarian, Mary Ann Peru, catches on to the plan. Our opening night of the performance of The Beloved the Music Man in our grand 1,800-seat Cavalier Theater will begin on July 28th and run through August 6th. With more than 50 members in the cast and over 100 local volunteers involved in this endearing production, it's going to be just dynamic. Tickets are selling fast, so I encourage everyone to go get their ticket. Tickets may be purchased at the box office, Ticketmaster.com, CivicArtsPlaza.com, or by telephoning 805-583-8700. And now, Cabrillo Music Theater presents a few musical moments from The Music Man, starring John Bison and Jill Van Velzer. What's that? No, not you, Toto. After all, we're not in Kansas anymore.
Friends, either you are closing your eyes to a situation you do not wish to acknowledge, or you are unaware of the caliber of disaster indicated by the presence of a pool table in your community. Well, you got trouble, my friends. Right here, I say trouble right here in River City. Why, sure, I'm a billiard player, certainly mighty proud. Say I'm always mighty proud to say it. I consider that the hours I spend with the cue in my hand are golden. Helps you cultivate horse sense and a cool head and a keen eye. Did you ever take and try to give an ironclad leave to yourself from a 3-rail billiard shot? Well, just as I say it takes judgment, brains, and maturity to score in a ball-flying game, I say that any boob can take and shove a ball in a pocket, and I call that slog. The first big step on the road to the depths of degradation. I say first it's a little of medicinal wine from a teaspoon, then beer from a bottle, and the next thing you know, your son is playing for money in a pinchback suit, and listening to some big out-of-town Jasper, hearing him tell about horse race gambling. Not a wholesome trotting race, no, but a race where they set down right on the horse. Like to see some stuck-up jockey boy sitting on Dan's patch. Make your blood boil? Well, I should say. Now, friends, let me tell you what I mean. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pockets in a table. Pockets that mark the difference between a gentleman and a bum with a capital B, and that rhymes with P, and that stands for pool. And all week long, your River City youth will be frittering away. I say your young men will be frittering away their noontime, supper time, chore time too. Get the ball in the pocket. Never mind getting dandelions pulled or the screen door patched or the beefsteak pounded. Never mind pumping any water till your parents are caught with a cistern empty on a Saturday night. And that's trouble. Yes, you got lots and lots of trouble. I'm thinking of the kids and the knickerbocker shirt-tail young ones speaking in the pool hall window after school. You got trouble. Folks right here in River City. Trouble with a capital T, and that rhymes with P, and that stands for pool. Now I know all you folks are the right kind of parents. I'm going to be perfectly frank. Would you like to know what kind of conversation goes on when they're loafing around that hall? They'll be trying out Devo, trying out Q-beds, trying out tailor-made nice cigarette fiends, and bragging all about how they're going to cover up a telltale breath with sense. And one fine night, they leave the pool hall, heading for the dance at the Armory. Libertine men and scarlet women and ragtime, shameless music that'll drag your son, your daughter with the arms of a jungle animal instinct, mass hysteria. Friends, the idle brain is the devil's playground trouble. Oh, we got terrible, terrible trouble. That game with the 15 numbered balls is the devil's tool. Oh, yes, we got trouble, trouble, trouble with a capital T. Gotta rhyme it with P, and that stands for pool.
It's brightest light doesn't know who you are. Sweet dreams be yours, dear, if dreams there be. Sweet dreams to carry you close to me. I wish they may, and I wish they might. Now, good night, my someone. Good night. Good night. Good night.
Thank you, Carol, thank you, and all the success. Did you want to wrap up? Give us the time again.
Better than that, I did want to hand some tickets to all the members here as a small token of our gratitude for all that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, and all the best to Cabrillo Music Theater and your production of The Music Man. Jerry Burns, followed by Marilee Ullman.
I'm Jerry Burns, 21-year resident of Thousand Oaks. The Thousand Oaks Kiwanis Club is going to be helping Santa Paula's Citrus Festival, the 39th annual Citrus Festival, this weekend in beautiful downtown Santa Paula. We have some great entertainment Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Chino, cover songs. Our big group for Saturday, we've got music from 1 p.m. through 10:30 at night. Our big group, Los Lobos, from La Bamba fame. I'm sure most of you have probably heard of them. On Sunday, July 16th, we open up with mariachi music, and we finish with Little Joe and the Familia. The festival will be at Harding Park. It's with the Boys and Girls Club of Santa Paula on Harvard Street. If you come over the back way through Grimes Canyon, we'll have parking close to the new Bob's Big Boy, which has been open for probably a year for the people going down Memory Road. There's lots of parking there, and we have little shuttles going over to Harding Park. The winner of the poster contest this year was a resident of Simi Valley, and they received $500. It's a national, international competition, and it's absolutely, I think, beautiful for this year. The cost to get into the festival is $5 for adults for each day. Kids 12 and under, $1. Lots of parking. See fun times in beautiful Santa Paula. And thank you very much, and hopefully this was a tough act to follow from the previous events. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Marilee Ullman, followed by Richard Zucca.
Good evening. Some hard acts to follow there. Marilee Ullman, resident of Thousand Oaks since 1962. I love Thousand Oaks, but I'm afraid of what it's becoming. I'm here tonight to talk about a profound realization I've concluded from studying the history of Thousand Oaks, before the bureaucracy took over, we were a town of people who pitched in and got things done. We had a place rich in the essence of nature. We had horse ranches, cattle ranches, orchards. We had space and simple parks filled with oak trees. We were close-knit. Above all, we had fun, we had camaraderie, we had peace. We got things done without the maze of codes, fees, and compliances. We had order. Now we have the upgrade of a new facsimile of a San Fernando Valley. We have more places to shop than we have money to spend. We have a majority council that took our democratic right to vote away from us. I'm here to demand change. We, the people of the rural-loving community, want graciously to request that the time has come that you stop exclusively catering to developers and the bureaucracy in our town and direct some of our tariffs, fees, and taxes to the history and culture of Thousand Oaks. We have Circle K at Two Winds, and we have Conejo Creek Equestrian Park, the only remaining public open spaces for citizens to enjoy horses. I request that the time has come to use some of our resources to support these last remaining evidences of our rural environment, to preserve what little is left. I humbly ask David Murdoch, who so readily and publicly supports Ride On and their valiant and worthy endeavors, to share with the community as a whole to help make our equestrian facilities among the best in the state. He, along with the Crusoe developers that have so lucratively profited from doing business in the Conejo, could follow the example of Ed Hogan and continue the legacy of the equestrian community, something they would be fondly remembered for, an olive branch to breach the developer environmentalist gap. I don't think it hurts to ask. Last year, our Mayor Claudia proclaimed an annual event called the Day of the Horse, organized by Barbara Kloster through ETI. Hopefully we'll get your support and community participation at this great event on September 9th. Barbara will soon formally announce an extended invitation to all. Lastly, thank you from the bottom of my heart, Claudia de la Pena and Janet Wall, for just officially announcing to run for City Council at the next election. The real slow growth advocates of our community are eternally grateful. Claudia, thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker, Richard Zucca.
I'm sorry, I think I may be breaking this festive mood. My name is Ricardo Zucca, and I live on Ellsworth Court, just off Camino Manzanas. I was prepared to discuss specific issues related to this street after the department report, but this item was postponed until next week. Instead, I will take this opportunity to call your attention to the way the proposal on the agenda was handled, a procedure that seems to turn the roles of elected and appointed officials upside down. The Traffic Commission has spent 3 full sessions deliberating over a proposal by the engineering staff, and they received extensive public comments. In the end, the Commission decided to shelve the staff proposal and came up with its own set of recommendations. In the agenda for today, now postponed until next week, you will find that the Public Works Department was submitting to the Council the same proposal that the Traffic Commission rejected. By doing this, the staff is overruling the Traffic Commission. I'm a scientist, not a lawyer, but my modest understanding of city government is that the Council makes policy while the staff implements it and provides unbiased advice. The Council has delegated some of these policy powers to the Traffic Commission, giving it an advisory capacity. By delegation, the Commission members play the role of elected officials. When the Public Works Department puts forward a proposal already rejected by the Commission becomes an advisor to the staff who takes over policy decisions. This is a complete reversal of the role of elected and appointed officials. I urge you to look carefully into this matter. On the Camino Manzanas issue, I ask you to toss out the staff proposal that the Traffic Commission has already rejected. But I also urge you to take a good look at the deep institutional implication of this incident that makes the Traffic Commission utterly irrelevant.
Thank you. That concludes our speakers under public comments. At this time, we'll move to item 7, City and Redevelopment Agency Consent Calendar. I would ask, pleasure of the council, any movement on the consent calendar to set aside or hold out item C at this time. Mrs. Bill De La Pena.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could we also pull item 7D?
Item 7C and 7D. Anything further? Okay, pleasure of the council. Mrs. Irwin?
I'll move the consent calendar with the exception of C and D.
Okay. Further discussion? There being none, please vote.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. We'll take these one at a time. Item D. Mrs. Bill De La Pena.
Thank you. I did have questions for both items C and D, and we can probably combine them. I could combine the questions.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Bill De La Pena. I'm going to have to recuse on item C. So
I see. Thank you.
That's fine. If you want to go with both of them, I can leave for
7D. We can begin with 7D.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
The additional appropriations, I would like to know from staff whether how the additional appropriations are covered and how they will impact our budget.
Mr. Watkins?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Gillette, members of the council. As you see on items 7C and on 7D, the costs for all of the construction projects these days are coming in very, very high, which is the reason why the appropriations are needed on item 7D for the traffic signal project.
Excuse me, Mr. Watkins. So what I hear you saying is there's a linkage, even a linkage in cost on these two items. Okay. At this time, I'd ask Mr. Fox to take the chair for these two items, and I'll leave the dais.
Sure. Go ahead, Mr. Watkins. We'll continue your report, and just have the record note Mr. Gillette's leaving the dais.
So. For item 7D, appropriations are required. The appropriations are coming out of several different funds. They're coming out of the Lighting and Landscape Assessment District fund balance. That's the fund that is currently used to pay for the operations of the signals. It also comes out of the AQMB fund balance, the Master Plan Signal fund balance. That's the signal fund that covers all of the arterial and arterial intersections. And then finally, there's grant funds that become involved, and so those had to be appropriated. That's the safe routes to schools, and then the under recommendation 5, it's the master traffic signal fund balance, which is basically taking money that's been collected through developer fees in that fund balance, and that's the remainder of the appropriation. So hopefully, Councilmember Bill De La Pena, did that generally answer the question, or is there a specific that you wanted?
I do understand how we found the funds. However, I would like to find out how it impacts other projects.
Within these funds are all dedicated specifically to signal projects. And so what's really happening is, if I recall, one of these projects is being advanced. Any other signal projects that were scheduled for future years would be dependent upon additional developer money coming in, developer contributions, or those projects would be delayed.
Which projects are being delayed as a result of this?
Well, none of the ones that are currently scheduled are being delayed. That's why we're doing the appropriation. The other option we would have, rather than appropriating, would be to delay some of the ones that are currently on the list. But rather than do that, we recommended doing all of these projects now. So what it would be is future signals that wouldn't be constructed potentially as soon as they could. I can't tell you specifically which intersections those might be. So none of the current projects are being delayed.
That was my main concern, whether any current projects are being delayed as a result of this, and you say none.
No, that's why we're appropriating it, so that all the current ones are being done.
In both item 7C and D?
I was just looking at D, the traffic signals,
Okay.
yeah. Is that the same question for 7C?
Yes.
On 7C, that is the overlay project, and these were the streets that were identified through the pavement management program. And it's the same case. What we're seeing is costs that are roughly very, very close to double what we were seeing as shortly as 3 or 4 years ago. And so in this case, it's the same thing. The options were to not award the project and to hold off for a year and take the risk that costs could go down. The risk to do that is also that costs might go up. And so in this case, we do have some additional money that will be coming in. Some of the Prop 42 money that the governor is paying us back now for the last 2 years, and some others. And so we're appropriating from gas tax to go ahead and do this year's overlay rather than postpone it off into a future year.
And again, in this case, no other projects are being delayed or impacted by this?
Correct.
And no projects are being advanced?
Right.
Thank you. With that, I move items 7C and D.
Mr. Minnick, did you have any additional comments before we entertain a motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Pro Tem, members of the council. Just for clarification for these two agenda items, the funding comes from special revenue funds. There are no general fund monies involved, so there are no general fund projects at risk. And cost of construction is going up, as Mr. Watkins pointed out, across the board for almost all of our capital improvement projects. So we did talk about the ability to delay some of these projects and see if the price would come down in the future. That's a very risky proposition because the price may go up, and we are an ongoing concern, and we have to ensure that these projects move forward. We will come back to council in the near future with the budget process for the next 2 fiscal years. And yes, there will be projects that are likely to be delayed in the future as a result of rising costs. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Minnick. Ms. Bill de la Pena, did you want to reintroduce your motion?
I move item 7C and D.
All right, the motion is to approve items 7C and D. Discussion on that? Vote, please.
Motion carries 4-0. Mayor Gillette absent.
All right, that is approved. Somebody want to notify Mr. Gillette? Here he is. Okay, and we'll turn the meeting back over to Mr. Gillette.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. City Attorney has reminded me I recused myself from item 7C because I live in the project impact area. Thank you. Public hearings, item 8A. The clerk, please open the hearing.
Hearing advertised as required by law is open to consider agenda item 8A, Municipal Code Amendment regarding massage establishments, massage technicians, and practice of massage. A speaker is available for those wishing to address the City Council regarding this public hearing. All documents for City Council and the official city record should be presented to the City Clerk prior to public speaking, allowing dissemination to Council and staff. 6 people have presented speaker cards, and pursuant to council directions, speakers are allowed 4 minutes each. The yellow light displays when you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. Staff report, Terry Scott, Public Services Supervisor.
Good evening, Council. The item before you is an amendment to the municipal code to revise the ordinance for massage establishments, massage technicians, and the practice of massage. The original massage ordinance was adopted in 1978. Regulation is done by the Finance Department, City Attorney's Office, Community Development, and the Police Department. On May 9th of 2006, Council initiated a municipal code amendment. The city has 7 licensed massage establishments and 94 licensed massage technicians. Staff sought input from the massage industry and received input from approximately 40% of our licensed massage establishments and technicians. After receiving and evaluating public input, as well as surveying surrounding cities, staff drafted an amended ordinance. Highlights of those amendments are as follows. Annual health check certificate was eliminated. The background check information has been moved to allow administrative changes by staff as deemed necessary. The educational requirement has been reduced to 500 hours, which still is more than double most cities in the surrounding areas, but is a best practice across the United States. Fees will now be addressed in the citywide user fee manual and will be included in the annual fee cost recovery analysis. Outdated references to old and in some cases defunct massage agencies have been removed. The ordinance allows for a valid certificate from the National Certification Board of Therapeutic Massage and Bodywork in lieu of proof of educational background. An appeal process for denial or revocation has also been added. Massage establishment license will not be issued for residents. There are some additional administrative changes that will be made. We're eliminating the requirement for the annual background checks during the renewal process. For logistic reasons, background check reviews will now be performed by TOPD personnel. And the annual inspection of massage establishment premises will be done by the city. The staff recommendation is to adopt the ordinance. This concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you. Questions of staff? Mrs. Irwin?
Yeah, I was curious why you decided to take away the option of having the home establishments. It says current home occupation permits allowing massage will not be revoked, but you will not be issuing any additional permits for that.
In reviewing the ordinance between the Community Development Department, the Police Department, and the City Attorney's Office, we evaluated the appropriateness of whether or not massage establishments being located in residential areas was an appropriate use. That's an issue that wasn't really presented to the council under the prior ordinance when it was adopted. It was never specifically addressed. It was a practice that somewhat developed. Although there are a number of home occupation permits to massage therapists that currently exist, we aren't aware of how many of those are actually performing as massage establishments. In order to perform massages at their home, they would be limited under the home occupation permit to a restricted number of visits per day. In this ordinance, what we're allowing to continue is any of those home occupation permits that are in existence. Additionally, home occupation permits would be allowed as they are for any other business for the office use, which would also allow people to come to that office for any other ancillary purpose to support that business. It would also allow any of the massage technicians to perform massages in a residential zone on an out-call basis, but it would not allow turning a residence into a massage establishment where people are coming to that area on an ongoing basis. There are several reasons why staff is recommending that. We've looked at application in other jurisdictions, and we believe that is consistent with other applications. There is greater difficulty in enforcing the ordinance and the restrictions, regulations on massage establishments in a residential area as opposed to a commercial area. there is greater opportunity for abuse or for violations to occur in a residential area. The impacts are potentially greater in a residential area than they would be in a commercial area that's designated for those purposes. And on the balance, that's why staff is recommending that the massage establishments not be allowed in a residential zone.
Okay, so you're saying other cities don't allow this use either? Or it's not common?
There are a broad mix of cities. One of the things that we have looked at in researching this is that because the state has left this health regulation uniquely up to local jurisdictions vary widely in the restrictions that they impose. There are some jurisdictions which do impose it, others which do not, and so it was not a uniformly allowed in residential zones, and so then it was a professional's opinion as to whether or not to recommend allowing this in a residential zone. Certainly, if that's the council's desire, it could be allowed in residential zones.
And have we had any complaints on this issue?
I'm not aware of any specifically regarding massage establishments. Again, we don't know how many of them are currently actively practicing as an establishment in a residential zone. We don't have any way of tracking that.
But you don't have any residents complaining about the massage parlor next door?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Bill De La Pena.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a question for staff as well. How will the revised ordinance assist police in actually tracking down the illegal activities, is what I'm trying to find out or figure out, because I see that some of these areas or sections are actually a little bit more lenient, reducing the hours of education, for example, from 1,000 to 500, which is fine. But how will this new ordinance assist police? Is that something that can be answered or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the primary response to that was specifically with regard to the elimination or the reduction in the hours of education. That was rarely followed as one of the criteria. It was an alternative criteria under the existing ordinance. The alternative of practical experience was primarily used. There was great difficulty in verifying that information that was provided, and in many instances it was suspect. So what we have done is to eliminate the practical experience, made the educational experience something that is that can be obtained. There are educational facilities that do provide that type of a course of study. And we also provide then, as the alternative to replace the practical, a national standard which is used by most jurisdictions and would in most instances would be the preferred method. That national standard does give the city some level of assurance in knowing that the applicant has appropriately completed the training that's necessary to be a legitimate massage technician. In addition, getting away from that specific example, in the way that the background checks are going to be processed and the information that is going to be collected, we have provided greater flexibility to allow our working with the police department to make sure that we are obtaining the information that will help us to identify whether or not these are individuals who have been involved in similar problems in other jurisdictions, and will also help us in tracking their information and their association with other individuals.
Thank you. Before Chief Carpenter weighs in, I was wondering about the background check. By eliminating by removing the background check and having it be handled by the finance department, how will that better assist the police department?
The background check will continue to be done by the Department of Justice. The only thing that we removed from the ordinance were the specific information that needed to be on the application, and that gives staff greater leniency to be able to add and change the application process quickly. But the actual background check itself is processed by the Department of Justice, and they will, in this next renewal period, we're petitioning them to let us know, hold on to the information and let us know if there's a problem. And that will resolve the reason for the annual process.
Mr. Mayor, council members, if I may weigh in on this. Regarding the background checks, the Thousand Oaks Police Department will be involved with that as well. In the past, the Sheriff's Department, Records Bureau in Ventura was taking that responsibility on. But in the future, the plan is for the PD to do that ourselves with the expectation that we'd be able to process that quicker, since we'll have fewer to deal with than what the operation has in Ventura. Regarding the other comments earlier, staff took a hard look at this and has been looking at it for some time, my staff. And we have concerns about allowing this type of business to continue within the residential community. Our neighbors to the south have had significant problems, issues with this, and one of the largest operations that came to conclusion here a while back was an operation that was occurring within the home. So I understand they're grandfathering some existing, is that correct? But future ones will not be allowed in the residential community.
And that is the one section in this revised code that will assist the police better in tracking down illegal massage establishments.
Yes, if we don't change it, it's going to make it much more difficult for us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Glancy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm curious about the elimination of the health certificate, and I was wondering if you know what happened with Newport Beach and Simi Valley when they dropped their requirement, or if conversation existed between staff as to the validity of maintaining hepatitis check. I know there are myriad communicative diseases, but hepatitis is one disease that's particularly easy to transmit. So was there any conversation
Yes, we did speak with Newport Beach, and we also spoke with Simi Valley. The premise for the health check is that when the applicant goes before a physician, the physician is checking them for communicable diseases. The certification is only good for that day. I mean, they could actually come down with it the next day or the day after that, and so we didn't see a value of that health certification. Also, there are so many communicable diseases. We asked whether we should, narrow the scope and give them specific ones that they should be checking for. And both Newport Beach and Simi Valley felt that there was little or no backlash from taking this away, from removing the requirement. And so because there was little or no backlash from them, and it didn't seem that asking for a health certificate that was so broad was practical, we decided to remove it also.
Okay, I appreciate your answer. My concern still stands. It is a disease that one can get strictly by walking through an area where someone with hepatitis has sneezed. The aerosol gets on a surface, and it's viable for a considerably long period of time, not like many other of the diseases, but I was curious as to whether you had considered hepatitis or if Newport Beach and Simi had.
Yes, both hepatitis and TB.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any further questions of staff? Mrs. Irwin?
Just had one more question about this home massage. Will massage still be allowed in other people's homes? So if you have, okay, you just cannot do it in your residence.
That's correct. There would not be a license issued for a massage establishment. where patients would be coming to the one location. If the massage technician goes to a patient's home, meets them in a residential zone, that would still be allowed for those individual cases.
Thank you.
Any further questions? All right. We have some speakers. The first speaker is Deborah Nesbitt. Second speaker, E.A. Schmidt. So Deborah Nesbitt, I would ask the speakers when you come forward, please give your name and community of residence. Thank you very much.
My name is Deborah Nesbitt. I'm a 20-year career massage therapist, and I've been in this community for the last 10 years. I was in Woodland Hills for a year, then I moved out here. So I've had a license here for, I think, going on 10 years. I'm here to oppose the lowering of the 1,000-hour education requirements to 500 hours. And I've heard the arguments that the standards are too high in comparison to the surrounding areas, and how it supposedly makes it a sort of a hostile environment in order to get a license to practice here. But based on the list of massage therapists that I acquired back when I first got here 10 years ago, there was maybe 24 at the most. And over the last 10 years, we now have, as she stated earlier, 94 people that are registered as massage technicians. At the time that I checked, there was only one massage establishment 10 years ago. So, but for the last 10 years, we've had a large amount of people coming in. And across the nation, the cities and counties all over in the states are all raising their limits. And a lot of them are raising them up to 500 hours. You can imagine how low they must have been before getting the 500 hours. And even though the surrounding areas of Simi Valley and Ventura and even LA have either equal to 500 hours or even less hours, I don't see why something that's been working for the last 10 years should be lowered. With the amount of people that have got licenses now, as they were stating earlier, it has been mainly their practical experience that has gained them the license to practice in this area. I would find it for you to be hard-pressed to find that the majority of these 94 people even have 500 hours worth of education. If you turn around and lower the education levels to 500 hours, I can't imagine, even the lowering of the standards in education. Some of the, I have found in talking with various massage therapists that I have personally had massage by, that a lot of them only have 250 hours, maybe 350 hours. Of those hours, they only have either 150 or maybe 200 hours of in-class documented education time. To make up their difference up to the 250-hour limit or whatever, they use student clinic as an hourly addition to the amount of hours that they say that they've gotten in-class documentation. And so that's one reason why I oppose the 1,000-hour reduction. If you do insist that the hours be lowered to 500 hours, I would recommend that these be 500 hours documented in-class instruction time, instead of 250 hours of in-class time with 150 hours of student clinic time. Student clinic time being where they do so many hours in a clinic environment to where they give public massage, and that counts as their hours of education. And then the part about a massage establishment, which I didn't quite understand, an establishment, would that mean someone as an individual doing massage in their home? Would that be considered an establishment and therefore barred? So if a person was wanting to work out of their home, they would have to be considered an establishment and not just a massage tech? It's a question that I'd like to get clarified. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. E.A. Schmidt. Mr. Schmidt?
Yes, my name is E.A. Schmidt. Everyone calls me Al. If it wouldn't be for professional massage therapist, I may not be standing here speaking before you tonight. If I would be here speaking to you, I would most likely be in a wheelchair. Professional massage therapists, most of them have 1,000 hours and a lot more because they continue their education. Just like a good doctor would continue his or her education, and like a good lawyer would continue his or hers. By lowering the standard to 500 hours, you are trying to demote the profession. I highly urge that you do not do that. I believe that Thousand Oaks is a leader, and you've shown that by requiring the 1,000 hours in the past, and I hope you continue to stay a leader. As far as elimination of the annual health certificate, I don't see why not. You don't test for HIV, neither does any other city, because it's considered illegal. And what is a bigger killer than HIV is communicable disease. As far as operating a massage business out of a home, I feel that if it's one massage technician in his or her own home, that they should be allowed to do that. Now, I mean, yes, you can limit it to the number that they can have per day. The city of Los Angeles allows it. They have the right to come in any time during the day of normal business hours and inspect that facility. You can do the same. Anyway, I'm not a massage therapist, but I rely a lot on them. I live in Panorama City, so I also know the Los Angeles laws. And as far as the NCBTMB, the last time I checked, which is a few years ago, for $600 I could have bought a license. And I don't think that is what I want to go see to have work on my body. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Patricia Conglocklin? Patricia?
My name is Patricia Coughlin, and I live in Newbury Park. I've been a licensed massage therapist in the city of Thousand Oaks since 2001. I diligently pursued my education and sought to complete all the city requirements to obtain my license so that I could establish a legitimate massage practice. I've complied with your now yearly regulations. When I purchased my current residence, I did so partially with the intention of operating a massage practice out of my home in accordance with city requirements. I submitted the information to the Planning Commission and was granted permission to proceed with my plans. Over the last 5 years, I have slowly built my own practice, which I operate out of my home according to city policy. I understand that the proposed amendment to the municipal code will not revoke my home occupation permit. However, should my family and I decide to move within the city of Thousand Oaks, this proposed change would jeopardize my chosen profession that I've worked so hard to pursue. I wonder, will this change affect anyone who operates a home business within the city of Thousand Oaks, or massage therapists in particular? To follow up on the specific reasons for this action, if there are some who practice illegal activity under the guise of any profession, I wonder how many would actually go to the trouble of obtaining a city license to operate their business. Quite frankly, I find some of the previous comments stereotypical and demeaning. My clientele live and work in the area at companies such as Amgen and Blue Cross. And although they have disposable income to spend at any local spa, they choose to come and see me because of the atmosphere I've created and the professional way in which I operate my practice. They would gladly back me up on this issue if asked. This is my profession, one that I've chosen after wearing an emergency room pager for 15 years, and I'm sure that I speak for all the massage therapists who work out of their home when I urge you to reconsider this particular part of the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia Popham, followed by Tina Maya.
Work?
Either one of them, whichever one you like.
The short one?
Okay.
I'm Cynthia Popham. I am a resident of Cornell. I was employed at the City of Thousand Oaks, or not at the city, but in the City of Thousand Oaks as a massage therapist. And I am concerned about having massage establishments in-home and doing away with those. Because I'm a resident of Cornell, I'm worried about the trickle-down effect. Whereas if they're going to adopt your policies as well. I live in a serene area, and residents of the area would love to come in, or even people from Thousand Oaks would love to come to the situation that I would create, being in a very serene location. I own my own home and wish to someday possibly have a massage establishment there. I don't know how you would regulate that in the City of Thousand Oaks if they're unregulated now, or unable to be regulated now, is what I think I've heard. And also, I'd like to hopefully turn your attention to try and be statewide regulated for all massage therapists, rather than just city by city and having to obtain a license from each and every city. Thank you.
Thank you. Tina Maya. Followed by Carolyn Brandon.
Good evening. My name is Tina Meyer, and I've been a resident of Thousand Oaks for about 9 or 10 years now, practicing massage for about that same time and being licensed for, I think, about 7 of those years. I feel that it's very important for the ordinance regarding the operating out of your home to be legal to operate out of your home. I just feel that it's safer. We've all, as it's going to be repeated, we've all worked very hard. We've all gone to school. We're professional. We've just worked very hard for that, for it to be taken away from us. In that sense, it'd be forcing us to go elsewhere where we're not really, personally, I'm not willing to go elsewhere to work somewhere. I don't want to work in a spa. I don't want to work in a different establishment such as that. I just feel that it's very strong that this is re-looked and re-evaluated. I know that I have more to say, I just can't think of it. In regards to how it's being taken care of through the police department, I would have absolutely zero problem for anybody to come in at any time to check out my room that I would be doing the massage in, because they would see that it's absolutely 100% professional, it's clean, it's a very beautiful environment, very soothing, blah, blah, blah. It's nothing funky that's going on, and I feel like the massage therapy, we're being zeroed in on it for this home establishment thing. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Carolyn Brandon.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Brandon, and my husband and I have lived in Thousand Oaks about 14 years now. We have a great community and great support with it. I am a licensed massage therapist, and I'm a grandmother. And those two things are causing a problem right now. Our family is growing, and the needs are growing. The kids are wanting larger space, we're wanting a pool, we're wanting to do some things in our neighborhood and still stay within the Thousand Oaks area. I do have a home occupancy permit, which is where I do have my business out of. I do have some limits health-wise with some arthritic conditions that do not allow me to be able to haul my 40-pound table and the sheets and the music thing and everything to people's houses to work. And so I have set up my home. The people that I do work with are in law enforcement. They are trauma-based from physical, sexual, emotional abuse. And also, if someone had just passed, I work a lot with people who are in passing from the ALS too, so I was touched by that earlier. I wanted to commend the city for taking a look at the ordinances and changing so much of it that was very, very helpful to all of us. And we feel really listened to and progressive caught up with what's going on. The one major concern that I do have, and I'm asking you not to adopt at this time, deals with the prohibition of the massage establishment to be operated from a residence. Our concern is that as our family is growing and our needs are growing, I understand we're grandfathered in now for where we are. But should we want to move, and we do want to stay within the city of Thousand Oaks, again, we have kids, we have grandkids and everything here, that would not be possible. It would mean the loss of me being able to work at my job that I have worked very, very hard at and done all of the requirements for the city as needed and love. I've just invested over $10,000, which is a huge amount of money to me, in a 3-year training course through the Foundation for Human Enrichment that is one of the top methods of working with trauma on a body-based way. They are in Thailand, they are in Katrina, they are helping out with Iraq soldiers. I spent 6 hours today working with the police department with a very disturbed, disoriented, distressed neighbor who they were trying to calm down enough to see what they could do. I didn't expect that today, but that's similar to the work that I do. Our concern is that there is not the prohibiting of all home occupation permits in Thousand Oaks, where the client comes to the home, that we're being singled out for massage under special prohibition. We are all happy to meet all of the requirements that you have under your ordinances for all the other businesses. Happy to meet them. And you have the enforcement of an annual inspection of the massage establishment premises. Again, we would be happy to meet that. It probably would be handy to have an appointment so the person that's getting a massage wouldn't be disturbed, but, you know, we're very happy to comply with that. I also understand that Terry Scott has been wonderful in helping us here, that I understand that she has given you from the Association of Bodywork and Massage Professionals a letter from Jean Robinson, the Government Relations Director. That's in your packet. And I'll wrap up, if I may. Again, that they are one of the large governing boards that are also regarding massage establishments as healthcare professionals with specialized training, that we should not be singled out to not be able to have our home business. The income that we all earn is limited because of the physicalness of the work.
You'll have to conclude your remarks now. Okay. Because of that, it does not allow us to work a 40-hour week and to garner an office or a spa at half price. That would take 100% of our income, which is no business. I love my business. I'd love to be able to carry it on in Thousand Oaks. Please help us out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions from the council. Ms. Spildell-Opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I would like to point out that I personally didn't mean to offend any massage therapist, but I believe that this particular ordinance, though, is also, or revision, proposed ordinance, a result of some of the illegal activity that has been going on in Thousand Oaks. And unfortunately, there is abuse and our illegal activities going on. Chief Carpenter, do illegal establishments outnumber any of the legal ones? Do we have any idea whether that is, do we even know that number?
Mr. Mayor, council members, no, I couldn't provide that number.
So for all we know, there may be a few that are in violation of our city ordinance, not necessarily dozens and dozens of the legal ones that we have.
Excuse me, it's not my intent to compare these type of businesses with what you may be referring to, so I really can't make a comparison or speculate on what might be out there.
Regarding the home permit, is that transferable at all? If somebody chooses to move to another location within Thousand Oaks, is that permit, can that be transferred to the new location?
That's an entitlement that goes with the property, and just like any other property-based entitlement would be an application through the planning department for the entitlement at the new location.
Yeah, but if we don't allow, if we would not allow any new permits, home occupation permits, could the person then, you were saying the person could not transfer it to a new property?
The person would not be able to transfer a home occupation permit. Home occupation permits are still allowed. Home occupation permits are still allowed for a massage-based business under the proposed ordinance. The only thing that is restricted is the ability to actually provide the massage there. They would be able to run their business out of their home, do all of their office work, receive whatever supplies there, and provide massage either on an out-call basis or as an employee or an independent contractor at an establishment at another location. The question is really separate from the issue of home occupation permit. That entitlement, it's a question of what's allowed under that, and the allowance is made by the massage establishment permit. And the question that's presented with this ordinance is, with the massage establishments that will be licensed by the city pursuant to this ordinance, where can they be located? What are the locations where people can come to receive a massage for compensation? That's the definition of a massage establishment under the ordinance. And it's staff's recommendation, and certainly council's decision, but it's staff's recommendation that those locations not be allowed in residential zones.
Chief Carpenter, of the illegal establishments that you know of, how many actually have applied for a permit? That issue was brought up by one of the speakers.
I wouldn't care to comment on that at this time, simply because of potential ongoing investigations. I'd like to clarify something. It came as sort of a question earlier, or a comment, I guess, is that this review was not a result of criminal activity that was brought to our attention. This review was a referral that came in from a massage therapist in our community that asked staff to review it, and that's what began this process.
Thank you for clarifying that. Thanks.
Mr. Fox.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad for that clarification. I think, just as a comment first, we've gotten a little off track with respect to how this first came to the council. My question is, what's the rationale that staff has used for recommendation 9 relative to the home occupation permit and not allowing that to be transferred upon somebody changing residence?
Again, there's two different issues that are regulated separately by several departments in the city. The home occupation permit is an entitlement that goes with the property that is issued by the planning department. The massage establishment is regulated by this ordinance and through the finance department, customer service of the finance department. The massage establishment license arguably could be transferred as long as it's established at the new location. It needs to be tied to a fixed location. There wouldn't be a problem in transferring the massage establishment license. But the home occupation permit is an entitlement that goes with the property.
Right. I think the clarification I'm looking for, Tim, is, and I think what you described it, and it's in conflict with what some of the speakers said, and I think the council needs some clarification on that. and that is, as if I understood you correctly, if you're operating a home occupation permit and you're providing massage within your home, and you sell your home and you move to another area of Thousand Oaks, while you can still have a license, if you will, to provide massage, you can no longer provide the massage at your new home. Is that correct? Under the number 9?
Under the proposed ordinance, that's correct.
Okay. And so my follow-up question is, what was the rationale for that change?
The rationale is a question we're proposing for the council consideration as to whether or not massage business is appropriate in a residential zone. Staff's recommendation upon review of police department's evaluation based upon experience that they have had in looking at other jurisdictions is that we recommend that massage establishments not be placed in residential zones, more difficult to regulate, to enforce, to oversee activities that occur there. It's more susceptible to potential violations. Not to suggest that anyone that has a business is currently engaged in any illegal activity, or that they would engage in illegal activity, but it is more susceptible. It's a council question, a policy question as to whether or not massage establishment businesses are appropriate within a residential zone.
Okay, and I guess my last question would be for Chief Carpenter. Chief, and this calls for some speculation on your part, but as I sit here and I listen to the report, common sense kind of dictates to me that if you're going to be doing something illegal, you're probably not going to go through the trouble of getting a license. Okay, I'm on a roll. All right, because I plan on massaging your recommendation. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay. Yeah, I guess my question is that if you're going to be doing something illegal, you're probably not going to go through the trouble of getting a license because you're just drawing attention to yourself, whether you're doing it at home or at some other location.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I don't believe that that's necessarily accurate. I mean, there are businesses that we know that exist in our county and communities where they have a license to perform a certain act, and yet other things are going on in that business. So it's not always true. I'm not pointing any fingers at any of the people in business here tonight, but it's not always an accurate statement.
Okay, would that kind of carry over again? I'm asking you to speculate for like a residential type license as well? Yeah.
I would defer to what he said earlier in that what we've seen in other locales, there's a bit of fear on our part that it could develop into a situation here for us.
Okay, very good. All right, that's all I got.
Let me ask one question along this line of thought. Given the numbers of people that we're dealing with that currently have a license to a home activity license and are operating this in their business, which are grandfathered in under this ordinance, how many people are we talking about?
The home occupation permits that we have don't differentiate between those that are only maintaining an office versus those that are actually seeing patients.
Okay, thank you, Tim, for that. Because it seems to me, and again, I have to rely on your experience, all of you, and what you've researched, but it seems to me that to avoid an undue hardship on a relatively small number of people who are complying, who have the home occupation licenses and have met the criteria, that our ordinance could be structured in such a way that it would provide for this relocation. The individual has a license, they're operating out of their home, their situation changes, they need a larger, different, etc., but they have an experience, a track record, if you will, that they couldn't make some sort of an administrative appeal, and we couldn't set ourselves up to view those on a case-by-case basis. You're not allowing a proliferation, you're not allowing this activity to grow, but you're addressing the people that currently are functioning within the framework, the letter and intent of the law, of the ordinance. Could we structure something, if we were so inclined, to modify our ordinance to accommodate that?
I believe that we would be able to work within the structure of the ordinance that's presented to you to do that. That's one of my earlier comments about the massage establishment license. You would have to identify the new location. It's annually renewed, but it could be renewed at a new location.
That was my point. And if you've got someone that has an established track record, has met all the criteria, has been operating out of their home for a period of time, main concern is to reduce the proliferation of this activity with unknowns. And I understand that. And I understand how this got before us again. I also understand that the state has seen fit not to take this on where it takes on all other kinds of professional standards. Barbers, beauticians, everybody else in those types of service ventures. But this one, they've chosen to leave it with municipalities, and that's why we find ourselves here tonight. So we have, just based on taking these at face value, we have people that have spoken to us this evening that should their circumstance change, they want to remain in the community, they want to remain a practitioner, but they need to relocate their personal dwelling place and continue their business. And it seems to me that we should be able to accommodate that. So I'll stop right there. Dr. Glancy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For Chief Carpenter, Chief, can you tell me how many calls for service there have been to licensed in-home massage establishments?
Can't tell you, sorry.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Irwin, you had a question earlier, and I didn't call on you. Do you still wish to? Okay. Mrs. Bill De La Pena, did you have something else? Okay. There are no further questions of staff. At this time, I'll close the public hearing. Will of the council. Mr. Fox.
Yeah, I'll kind of kick it off here. I think staff's done a good job with respect to identifying some of the issues that were raised, again, from a business community with issues that they were dealing with running a business of this type. At the same time, I think we need to be responsive to the public comments that we heard from a number of people that are residents of this community and are operating a legal business within the community. And to that extent, I'd like to modify recommendation number 9 that would allow for the continued use of a home occupation permit for massage in a residential area, and basically keep all the other conditions. So that would be subject to inspection and all the same things that we are requiring now. And really the rationale behind the amendment is to accommodate, I think, the speakers that we heard here tonight, and the very real impact that would have if they choose to relocate but stay here in the Conejo Valley, in particular Thousand Oaks. And we've heard no testimony or report from staff to the contrary that in any way, shape, or form that's going to cause a problem. So, and in relation to that, we've heard tonight that if we keep it as written, it is in fact going to cause a problem for people that live here. So that's the one modification I would make. The other issue is I'm inclined to deal with the education issue in terms of 1,000 hours and leave it at 1,000 hours. It's not a make or break type issue, but again, we heard from people that are professionals in the area that's not something that's completely unreasonable. And by the same time, I think staff didn't just pick a number out of the air. So I'm open to that. But I'm going to move at this point that we approve the recommendations from staff 1 through 8 and amend recommendation number 9 to allow for home occupancy permits to be applied for and upon inspection and approval be granted. Is that clear enough for staff? Yes?
Yes. The request was to introduce the ordinance. There should be to introduce the ordinance. The proposed ordinance is attached to make the modification that council members are requesting in the motion. On page 2 of the proposed ordinance, section 5-17.02, the last sentence can be stricken. But with that exception, I believe that that would address that proposal of the council member's motion.
Okay, and then so for purposes of the record, Mr. Mayor, I would move that the ordinance be read in title only, further reading be waived, and if no objections, introduced as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. City Attorney, Mrs. Albano.
Thank you. There is one other change we'd like you to make to the amendment, if you would include it in your motion. The Part 4 effective date language is incorrect. We have a corrected language for a signature when it finally is adopted, but what it should read, if the council will bear with me, is that we would delete what's there for Part 4. I'm sorry that this didn't end up in the council's green packet. And I had it right here, and now I lost my page. It should read, this ordinance shall take effect on the 31st day from the date of its adoption, period. That's it. So we would ask that you include that.
I would include that in the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. So 1 minute, please. What I'm trying to determine, my understanding is from the report that the other cities dealing with this issue have gone to a training requirement time now of less than 500. If my concern is, and perhaps the city attorney could respond to this, if there is a pattern to start to establish a training norm, recognizing that we have 475 cities in the state of California, but if we're headed towards somewhere in that 500 range, if we're at 1,000, does it place in jeopardy that section or our enforceability as being unreasonable and inconsistent with the norm? I'm sorry, Mr. Giles?
Just, Mr. Mayor, if I...
Yeah, I'm sorry, yes, Mr.
My motion is for the current language, which is 500. I just raised that as an issue to see if there was interest from the council, but...
Okay, then forget... That's fine. Forget that. Then let me ask you one other question on your motion. Your motion on the modification to item 9 would allow anyone, even a new practitioner, to apply for a home occupancy permit for this activity, and not just address the people that currently are covered under, are operating out of their homes. Is that correct?
Exactly, as long as they agree to all the conditions that are set forth in this, so they got to come into the same regulations that everybody else does.
Okay, all right, additional comments to the motion? Mrs. Bildale-Lapena?
Yes, the motion, as I understood, was actually, did you amend it from a 1,000 to 500? Because you did say 1,000 originally.
No, actually the staff recommendation in the ordinance calls for 500 hours. I was just raising the 1,000 hours as a point to see if there was interest in the council, because we had commentary on that. So the motion really is that the ordinance would be presented with the only amendment involving the home occupation issue.
The comment also was made by a speaker tonight that if we are to reduce the number of hours, that the 500 hours be required to be documented in class instruction time. Is that something that you would be willing to include in your motion?
You know, I think I'm inclined to, I think staff did a tremendous amount of work and analysis on this with input from people in the business, and so I'm inclined not to tinker too much with that, so we're consistent with the recommendations from staff. There's a lot of ways to get education, and so particularly in an area like this, you could be an apprentice for somebody that has a massage business in their home. Somebody has an interest, they could apprentice with a licensed massage therapist for some period of time and get certified. That's not necessarily a school, but I would consider that training and education. So I think there's a variety of ways to do that.
The comment was also made about the National Certification Board for Therapeutic Massage and Bodywork, the NCBTMB, which it appeared was maybe easier to acquire, or I don't know whether it indeed can be purchased, but I would hope, and it is probably a more common practice that after professional training that you are certified. But would it be not better to continue with proof of educational training rather than a valid certificate from the NCBTMB? That is my question to my colleagues. That's item number 7.
Yeah, as I read 7, and maybe staff can help out, it's a valid certificate from the NCBTMB or a valid proof of education or training, which would be certified, my sense is, from somebody that's, recognized practitioner. It's either or, is that correct?
The two alternatives are certification from the National Board, which does administer a test, which, not unlike the bar exam for attorneys, it's not a purchase of a certificate, send in your money and collect a certificate. They do have testing requirements that are rather stringent that are required, and that is a fairly standard certification that's required by many of the states which actually regulate massage at the state level, and by many local jurisdictions within California. The alternative to the national certification is a degree or certificate from a recognized school. The problem that would crop up under this scenario that was suggested by a speaker in some of the discussion is the burden that would be placed on staff to evaluate how the course of study was applied, how many hours were in the appropriate types of courses, what courses were in class versus practical. It becomes an insurmountable burden for staff to make those kind of evaluations on different educational institutions throughout the state. What we have proposed here, and what, quite frankly, is the same as what is currently under the Thousand Oaks Ordinance, and it is most ordinances in local jurisdictions throughout the state, is looking simply at what is the school. Does the school require 500 hours of coursework in order to graduate? The problem with the ordinance, the way it was written, is there is no educational jurisdiction that requires 1,000 hours. That was the reason for the change. There have been different methods that have tried to address that problem. I know that there are a number of technicians which have repeatedly taken the same courses over and over again, trying to get up to 1,000 hours. But under the ordinance, the way it's currently written and proposed, it would just be simply looking at the school. What does the school require? If it requires the 500 hours, then a certificate, a diploma or certificate from that school, or the certificate from the National Board and the exam that they provide.
Thank you. And actually, in which section of the ordinance, proposed ordinance, are we regulating the hours? Oh, I see. On page 2, under item 2, not less than 500 hours before the student shall be furnished with a diploma. Thank you for clarifying this.
Okay. Additional comments to the motion? All right. I'm going to propose an amendment, and it has to do with item 9. And it's my concern over not necessarily this particular discipline, but proliferation of activities in residential areas. And so I'm going to propose all of the things that were recommended in the modification to 9, where it would say current home occupation permits allowing massage will not be revoked, and language would be developed that would allow current home occupancy permit holders with this discipline, should they decide to relocate within the jurisdiction of the city of Thousand Oaks would have an opportunity to come in and move their home occupancy permit to their new location through an administrative process, but there would be no issuance of new home occupancy permits for this practice. That's the, is that clear?
My understanding that Mayor's proposed amendment could be accomplished with leaving the language of 5-17.02 as it's stated, but inserting the word new. No new massage establishment license shall be issued to a residentially zoned property, and that then they would be allowed, however, to renew their license at a new location.
I think, Mr. Gauss, you have the intent. The wording of that is up to you.
Well, but we want to make sure that we have the language that's going to be introduced tonight. We want to be clear that we have an understanding of what the council's intent is.
Okay, because the intent, my intent with this amendment, should it pass, I have no idea, but it should pass, is that if someone is currently has a track record, has a history of providing this service in a residential area, and they find they're for any period of time, and they find that their situation changes and they want to relocate within our jurisdiction, that they could, there's an administrative process established whereby they can seek transferring this to another residential area, but there would be no new. What I want to do is stop the proliferation of this, and I have a concern over home businesses in residential areas anyhow, so. You want to caucus for a minute?
What we would propose doing is drafting language as you suggest if the amendment is successful, and we'll bring that back on the consent calendar for introduction next week.
Thank you. Okay. Dr. Delancey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It seems as though in passing this amendment we'd be targeting a particular industry, and my opinion is that if we want to do away with residential home business licenses, that we attack it in whole rather than by industry by industry.
Thank you. Any further comments to the amendment? Please. Oh, Mr. Fox, sorry.
Yeah, actually, that was my thought as well, is that I think singling out whether it's somebody doing a computer business or whatever it might be, if we and we do, this council, this community has an issue in maintaining the residential feel of our neighborhoods. I think we should probably look at it from a holistic approach, and maybe that's a better item for a future agenda. But to call this one out, particularly in dealing with if you're here, you're okay, but if you're new, you're not, I think that could be problematic. So I'm not going to be able to support the amendment.
Thank you. Mrs. Bildale-Lapena.
I also will not be able to support the amendment for the very same reasons that I don't feel that we can single out this particular profession or make it different treat it differently from any of the others.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, please vote.
Motion fails 1-4.
Thank you. Okay, back to Mr. Fox, back to the original motion.
Okay, again, my motion is to introduce the ordinance and as amended in number 9 in the recommendation, and as to the effective date as outlined by the city attorney.
Thank you. Any additional comments to the motion? There being none, please vote.
And the ordinance title is an ordinance amending Thousand Oaks Municipal Code repealing in its entirety Title V, Chapter 17, and adding Title V, Chapter 17, adopting licensing and operating regulations for massage establishments, massage technicians, and the practice of massage, and the motion carried 5-0.
Thank you. Item 8B, would the clerk please open the public hearing?
Hearing advertised as required by law is open to consider agenda item 8B, Municipal Code Amendment 2006-70186, to allow temporary use permits for new vehicle storage in the highway and arterial commercial civic center zone. A speaker card is available for those wishing to address the City Council regarding this public hearing. 2 people have presented speaker cards, and pursuant to council direction, speakers are allowed 5 minutes each.
Thank you. Steve DeGeorge, Associate Planner.
Good evening, Mayor Gillette and council members. The item before you this evening is a municipal code amendment to allow the approval of temporary use permits for the temporary storage of new vehicles in the highway and arterial commercial civic center zone. As proposed, this amendment would automatically expire July 31st, 2011, unless the council chose to extend it. On your screens, you'll see the perimeter of the C2CC zone with the Civic Arts Plaza sort of at the center bottom of your screen. The purpose of the code is simply to allow temporary use permits for new vehicle storage in the C2CC zone, which would then allow some temporary use of properties to the west of the Civic Center while a comprehensive redevelopment plan is being prepared. This would also accommodate the need of temporary storage of new vehicles during construction of the new dealership at the Auto Center Rusnick BMW. The environmental review of this, the code amendment qualifies for a Class 4 categorical exemption, pursuant to Article 19, Section 15304 of CEQA, which specifically allows temporary use or minor temporary uses of land having negligible or no permanent effects on the environment. When the Planning Commission heard this municipal code amendment, the resulting vote was a 2-2 tie, which, as provided by the municipal code, is deemed as a recommendation of disapproval, since it did not achieve a majority vote. Staff recommendation is that you approve MCA 2006-70186 to allow the approval of temporary use permits for the temporary storage of new vehicles in the highway and arterial commercial civic zone center. Those temporary use permits would be subject to all the rules and regulations of temporary use permits, including a lifespan of 18 months with a possible 6-month extension. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions of staff? Mrs. Bildale, opinion?
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
The original, I want to make sure that the original recommendation was to allow use of up to 5 years.
That's correct.
And now you're reducing that, or are you?
No, that
you're
is
not
still,
reducing that.
that is
If that's
still
the case, so after 18 months and the 6-month extension, you would renew it?
That's the temporary use permit itself. Has a lifespan of 18 months plus a 6-month extension. This municipal code amendment has a 5-year lifespan.
The 18 months with a 6-month extension was drafted, I believe, about 2 to 3 years ago, Mr. Prescott, if I recall correctly.
It actually goes back longer than that, when the temporary use permit ordinance was adopted. And it did allow the temporary storage of new cars in other zones. I'm looking for the effective date. Actually, it was revised in 2001. It was adopted in 2001.
And how have we been doing with this particular recommendation of 18 months? That was supposed to be temporary, and there was supposed to be no extension other than the 6-month extension. How many times have we been extending that?
Well, for each individual property, a separate temporary use permit is required in each individual use, and that would be permissible for 18 months with one 6-month extension. So I don't have statistics at hand on how many temporary use permits we've issued and how many of them have asked for and received the 6-month extension.
The temporary use permit extension, and I'm going to make sure that we're talking about the same one, was particularly amended several years ago because of the need for parking of new vehicles for storage. Is that the same one we're talking about?
That's the temporary use permit ordinance. We also covered a number of other temporary uses in the same ordinance, but that was really the genesis of it, if you will. But there are other temporary uses that are listed in the ordinance that fall within it, the Christmas tree lots, the pumpkin lots, and that sort of thing.
So are you saying that after 18 months and a 6-month extension that these particular lots are no longer being used, or parcels being used to store any vehicles anymore?
Which particular parcels are you talking about?
Any parcel that was where a permit was requested.
Well, what we have before us tonight is a zone amendment to the ordinance that would allow that process to occur in a zone where it's not presently allowed to occur, that being the C2CC zone. And at this point, we don't have any temporary uses of this nature established in the C2CC zone.
In any other zone?
We do have them in the other zones. They're permitted in the C2, the C3, C4, the C2AM, which stands for Auto Mall Zone, M1 and M2 zones. So those are the only zones that allow this particular type of temporary use now.
I'm wondering whether you know whether the storage of vehicles is actually going beyond the 18 months plus a 6-month extension.
No, I don't.
You don't know?
No.
Thank you.
Additional questions of staff? Okay. We have 2 speaker cards on this one. The first speaker, former council member, mayor, and planning commissioner, Mrs. Frances Prince. Good evening, Frances, and welcome back.
Mayor, council members, city manager, and staff. There are 3 of us in the audience this evening. Dave Gilbranson, who has submitted a speaker card, Dr. Jerry Miller, who is also here to support this, who has submitted a public comment card and would be willing to answer questions if there were any questions of him. The staff has really done an outstanding job of simply laying out the groundwork of how this came to be. The letter that was submitted by Dave Gilbranson outlines the request and some of the thought processes behind the request to ask the council to initiate this code amendment. There is no, as far as we are concerned, there is nothing sacrosanct about the idea of the 5-year sunset provision. It could be 4 years. It could be 6 years. That's at the council's discretion. It is our understanding that a permit is only permitted for 18 months with a possible 6-month extension. So no matter how long the ordinance is in existence, a single permit can only be for 18 plus 6. And as the council is, I know, aware of, we have worked assiduously with property owners and with the city over a period of time to develop a plan for the west side property. We have 2.5 acres that are directly adjacent to the city hall property. It borders Dallas Drive. And there is no desire on the part of that group of investors to prematurely submit an application to the city until there is a clear and definitive concept from the city on what you want to see on that property, and that all efforts to acquire additional cooperation from other property owners down the road toward Erbs Road, that all those avenues are exhausted. That is an important piece of property, and it is important that it have a well-thought-out, well-developed, well-analyzed, and appropriate development that occurs on it. This change in the ordinance, temporary change, what that would permit, it would give us a little extra time, it would give the city a little extra time, and in addition it would provide something to the auto dealers that is something they need very much. So as far as we can see, it is three winning situations. It permits us to make some use of the property, very unobtrusive use, would not be visible from the street, can be screened, and whatever else is required by the city for the temporary use permit. So it would allow us to use the property. It would allow the city time to definitively reach conclusions as to what it wants to see on the property, and it would allow the auto dealership to have a little more room to park used new vehicles. So we see it as a win-win-win situation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have at this time, and if not, then I think Dave Gilbranson would like to make a few comments.
Thank you very much, Francis.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your attention. And I would like to take the opportunity to thank the staff for the effort that they have put into this. Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just a minute. Mr. Fox?
Yes.
Thanks, Francis. Let me ask you a question about the sunset period.
Yes.
Is there any magic to the 5-year with respect to, and I might have missed it while I was outside.
You did miss it, and the answer is no, there is not.
Okay, so if we were
If you wanted to make it 10 years, if you wanted to make it 4 years,
I was thinking
3 years even.
2 years with extensions, you know, and that would be done administratively. You wouldn't have to come back or something like that. So we're not so much tied to, you know, 5 years is a significant period of time.
Right.
So
no, there's nothing magical about that number.
Because it is a temporary use, one way or the other.
It is temporary use, and it's our understanding that for our purposes, we can only use it for 2 years anyway at the maximum.
That's what I was thinking.
That's right. So
Okay.
no, there's nothing magical about that.
All right.
That
Okay.
is entirely at the council's discretion.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Mr. Dave Gilbranson. Evening, Dave.
Wow, tough act to follow. Dave Gilbranson, I'm a resident of Camarillo, but a long-term member of the community of Thousand Oaks for my businesses. I'm happy to be here this evening and speak in favor of the amendment to the ordinance to allow the temporary use of parking for new vehicles. I do have experience with the temporary use permit process for the auto mall to park new vehicles on our properties in other zones. We have happily applied for those permits on those other properties. We have installed biodegradable material on the dirt to keep both the weeds down and the dust down. We have never had a complaint from any of our neighbors. The auto mall has been very happy to have in the near proximity of the mall a place to park new vehicles. It's becoming more and more scarce in our community as we redevelop and develop what's left, and they are now looking well beyond the area of the auto mall to place these new vehicles, including Agura and on the other side of Lake Sherwood. It doesn't help them to continue to move the new vehicles further and further away from the auto mall. The temporary use permit process is very effective. The screening of the new vehicles from vision has worked very well. We provided safety and security with locks and so on. The auto mall monitors that as they park their new vehicles on our property. In addition, on another level, the Riverstone Group has worked very diligently to improve the property next to our neighbors at the Civic Center. We have removed old buildings and questionable uses. We have removed all the old abandoned vehicles, and we have cleaned up the property dramatically without making a serious commitment to the tenants that are there now with major renovation. We've painted and cleaned and landscaped, and the tenants that are in application or are the new tenants there now understand that the leases that we have formed in those properties have a sunset clause also. They're not long-term leases. So we are moving forward to develop that property, or in this case, redevelop that property to blend with our community, the Gardens of the World, the Civic Center, and of course the lakes. And I too am available for questions if you have any.
Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Spildale-Pena.
Good evening, Mr. Gilbranson. I was wondering whether you have contemplated any other options besides storing vehicles on your property.
The only thing we've been approached to use the property for was for excess parking for either Civic Center employees or for events at the Gardens of the World. But we were told without this variance or amendment, we couldn't do that. So we have been unable to do anything else.
Any other ideas that you may have come up with other than that?
We're working towards a major redevelopment in cooperation with the city, but nothing interimly or temporary.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Mrs. Irwin, did you have a question? Okay. Anything down at the other end? I guess not. At this time, we'll close the public hearing. Pleasure of the council. Mrs. Irwin?
Yeah, I just had a quick question for, I think it's Mr. Prescott. I certainly support what you're doing up there and giving more time and letting
Excuse me, Mrs. Irwin, if you have questions of Mr. Prescott, I'll have to reopen the public hearing.
Oh, okay, I have questions, yes.
Okay, then at this time, I'll reopen the public hearing.
Okay. I certainly support what they are trying to do there, consolidating the properties and giving some use of the property in the meantime. But what I wanted to know is in this, on this map, is there any other potential area that would be taking advantage of this? And is there a requirement in the municipal code amendment for if it's going to be used to park cars for screening, or is this not part of the amendment?
The only area that really could be used at this time is that one particular parcel. All of the other areas within this T2CC zone are developed at this time. It's really the only viable spot for additional parking.
Okay, so we're not going to end up, some other owner is going to ask to park cars and they're not going to do the same thing that the Riverstone Group is suggesting, screening the cars?
Well,
I think it's, we can't categorically say it's impossible, but it's unlikely, particularly with the relatively short sunset clause for the ordinance itself, and whether that's 5 years or 4 years or however many years. I think the only way it could occur would be, for example, if some property went out of business and they demolished the building and then that left a vacant lot for a period of time.
At that time, could the city require screening if they choose?
Yes, that's something that we can do for any temporary use permit.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions of staff? Okay. Mrs. Spildale-Pena.
Mr. Prescott, is there any way to monitor whether there is any continued use after 18 months plus 6 months, such as for the other zones?
Well, we do have a record of when the use permits were issued. It would be through code compliance that we would be able to check it. Obviously, a property right next door to City Hall is relatively easy to check because everybody sees it when they drive into work every day. So,
what about any of the other properties? Do you know? I've asked this question before, but is there any way to monitor? If nobody's complaining about it, then for all we know, that use is still continuing. Has anyone checked lately on that?
Well, I'd have to talk to the staff about that. I don't have the information with me this evening about what is happening with the various temporary use permits that the city has issued in the past for other properties that are not within the C2CC zone.
Thank you.
Thank you. The city attorney has a comment in response to that last exchange.
I was just going to say that I think Mr. Prescott was trying to do that you did ask some questions that are relevant to how are we doing enforcement, but we need to remember that what's in front of us as an agendized item is the change in zone and not how we are enforcing the rest of the code. And I just was getting uncomfortable with the amount of exchange going on with that topic. But we're done, so.
Thank you. Additional questions of staff while we still have the public hearing open? At the conclusion of the speaker cards also, I had one written statement card for Dr. Jerry Miller, who's in favor of granting the temporary use permit as proposed. Okay, no additional comments of staff at this time. I will close the public hearing again. Pleasure of the council. Mrs. Irwin.
I will move the staff recommendation to approve the ordinance, and I think a 2-year sunset clause is, I think that's long enough with maybe 6-month extensions, as Councilmember Fox had suggested.
I'd ask Mrs. Albano, the city attorney.
If the council has a sunset clause, it really should be a day certain. That's the point of the sunset clause. So it would be better if you are going to have it sunset, that it be either 2.5 years or 3 years or 2 years, but not that the staff administratively can continue the viability of the clause. This is something adopted by council. Normally, if you wanted it to continue, we would bring it back to the council and the council would act on that. So you can either set it at 2 years, and then if there's a need for it to be longer, we could bring it back, or you could set it for 3 years or 5 years, but it's really up to the council to set the date.
Okay, then
one other thing, when you make the motion, as the previous one, the effective date on Part 3 is wrong, and it should just read, "This ordinance shall take effect on the 31st day from the date of its adoption," period, and the rest of that sentence needs to be deleted. Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Irwin, conclude your...
Yeah, then I'll say the staff recommendation with a 3-year sunset clause.
All right, comments to the motion? Mrs. Bildale-Pena?
Thank you. I will not be able to support the motion because it is not in keeping, obviously, with what is proposed for this particular zone. Even 2 years is longer than temporary. And the fact that we don't have any sort of enforcement or monitoring in place, or can't really be required at this time, I feel very uncomfortable in amending a code to accommodate something that could proliferate, if not in this particular zone, but perhaps in others. We already amended the code once before in the year 2001, and to do this again for another zone, to me, is dangerous because we have set precedents, and now this may be also carrying over to other zones. People, property owners or applicants may be coming before the council to do the same.
I just feel very uncomfortable with that, and as a result, will not be able to support this particular motion.
Thank you. Additional comments to the motion? Dr. Clancy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What we have is a 2.5-acre lot that's very close to us for, as someone pointed out, I think Mr. Prescott, that is certainly under close supervision. Visibility of these automobiles from the street would be negligible, and actually be negligible from almost anywhere, because as you drive up the ramp, you should be looking into the structure rather than off to the side. I think what we get out of this is some security on the property, which I don't think has been brought up. Those cars are going to be down there. They're going to be secure. It's a lot better than what it is right now. There's also going to be really a benefit to the city. We're going to have a known neighbor down there for a short period of time. I think the 3-year sunset is very appropriate. I have no problems with that at all. The TUP is, at a max is 24 months. I'm very happy to support the motion.
Thank you. Additional comments to the motion? I would comment that looking at the property as it currently appears bodes very, very well for the responsibility of the new owners. It is such an improvement over what it was at our front door of our Civic Arts Plaza, and the detail that's gone into cleaning it up, preparing it with the wood shavings and everything, and new automobiles stored there are certainly a more positive relief than what we've had for the last 10 years since this building, 11 years since this building was created. So I will support the motion. Who had that? Mrs. Irwin, the maker of the motion? Anything further? There's nothing further. Please vote.
This is an ordinance amending Thousand Oaks Municipal Code to allow temporary storage of new vehicles within C2/CC Highway and Arterial Business Civic Center Zone. And the motion carries 4-1 with Councilmember Bill De La Pena dissenting.
Thank you. Item 9A was pulled, coming back on July 18th. Item 10, redevelopment agency reports, none. Item 11, community commission board reports. Youth commission appointments, Dr. Glancy and Mrs. Irwin. Which one? Dr. Glancy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had Councilmember Irwin and I had the opportunity to interview several handful, actually 13 young applicants to the Youth Commission. And I have to say that I've never been exposed to close encounter of this sort, interrogating and interviewing young people that are so interested in their community and in the welfare of their group. It was really very refreshing, and I have to say that I learned a great deal watching Councilmember Irwin ask the question. She has very close, much closer to this process than am I, since my children are long gone. But anyway, it was a great opportunity. We interviewed a lot of very, very talented and worthy young people. So I ask that the commission or council accept this report.
Thank you, Dr. Clancy. Any comment, Mrs. Irwin? Okay. Recommendation is to approve. That's the motion. Please vote.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Item 12, council issues and recommendations. A, follow-up reports. We have none. Item 12B. I brought this item forward for council consideration. The program that was cooperatively developed between the Canal Valley Unified School District and the Ventura County Community College District would have led to the development of an educational learning center at the site of the proposed continuation high school at Jans and the 23 freeway. Because of a lot of reasons, escalating costs, time delays, construction costs, et cetera, that project is no longer on the drawing board. And last week in one of the local papers, the Canal Valley Unified School District was reported out to be moving ahead with development of the plans for the relocation of the continuation high school to the Jans and Freeway 23 location next to Canal Valley Unified School District headquarters buildings. What I'm asking with this request, we have last reported between 1,500 and 2,000 city residents that commute regularly to Moore Park College. It seems to me that there may be I believe there's a need, and there may be an opportunity here for the city to help with the development of some form of educational training facility that would assist these numerous residents in obtaining the kind of exposure to that level of academic program in our community without having to commute to Moore Park. And that kind of an academic facility would be an asset to our over-educational resources in the community. I have no idea at this time what role the city would play, but I'm seeking council permission to make some general inquiries of the principals in this, to see if there is some way, some opportunity that exists that a facility of this type could be brought to the city of Thousand Oaks. This is very preliminary, but I don't feel it should be broached without the authority of the entire council. Any development of this would, of course, come back to the council as it evolves. I'd be willing to serve as a one-member representative of the council to do this, to conduct these inquiries, and would ask for one of my council colleagues to assist me in this endeavor if the council feels that this is something that is worthy of pursuit. Comments? Mrs. Spildale-Pena.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that the initial or the original proposal also had concerns regarding the increase in traffic it would bring. That was a big concern to residents in the area. Would that be something that this committee would discuss?
As I see it, for the entire spectrum of activity surrounding a location or surrounding a facility of this type would be part of the subject. Which, excuse me, Mr. Mitnick, I see my colleagues down there. We have approximately 1,500 to 2,000 students who go throughout the week. They all don't go at the same time, so that's balanced. But as far as the traffic issues, noise issues, light issues, all of the related issues would be part of the discussion if this thing moved forward. The first thing is to see if there's any value in pursuing city participation in the creation of this kind of a facility.
When you say city participation, are you also talking about expending funds?
My sense is that at some point that might be a requirement, since funding is always one of the big criteria, of the big hurdles in something like this. But if you have multiple jurisdictions involved in this, you may even have a public-private partnership that could evolve. The point is to create this kind of a learning center for our residents in our community.
Thank you.
Dr. Glancy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that for the gathering of information, purposes of gathering of information, and do an initial study, I think it would be most appropriate to create this ad hoc committee. It is beneficial to have some of our college students be able to attend locally rather than be on the highway, and I think it's appropriate. So it would be my pleasure to move a recommendation of creating the ad hoc committee.
Thank you. Additional comment? Mrs. Irwin?
In the report, it talks about just one elected official. So are you adding somebody to help you?
No, I'm offering to do this and to do the preliminary work and looking into this. I would welcome an additional council member. I respect all of you and your time and the availability of time. So if someone feels, I don't believe that we're ever going to get a branch of the Ventura County Community College in Thousand Oaks. I think they're probably considerably overextended with the 3 campuses that they have. But a learning center is something that I think may be of significant benefit to a fairly large number of residents of this community. So I'm willing to do the preliminary work. I would like to have one of my colleagues join me if their time is available. But that's I'm not trying to. I'm trying to add to the burden of any of the rest of you. Yes, Mrs. Irwin.
Yeah, I can help you with that.
Well, that's
unless somebody else has a burning desire, Mr. Glancy.
Well, that's fine and much appreciated. So now, what the motion? I believe you made a motion, Dr. Glancy. Okay, comments to the motion. There being none, please vote.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much. Item 13, General Utilities, Golf Course Theaters, and Redevelopment Agency demands. Move the recommendation to ratify demands of July 4th, 2006, approve demands of July 11th, 2006. Please vote.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Item 14, City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, by way of follow-up on requests from the public, we had one speaker who spoke on the Camino Manzanas item that was pulled. Just to remind council, that item will come back to you next week, Tuesday, July 18th, and the staff report will be revised. I'm working with the Public Works staff to look at some different options on the recommendations, and also Public Works Director Mark Watkins and myself we're trying to set up a meeting with the Transportation Commission Chair to work through some issues. So you will get a revised report, and for those who are still watching at home, I wanted to point that out. By way of no legislative issues to report at this time, and with respect to upcoming issues or meetings, I should clarify again, we will have another regular council meeting next Tuesday night, July 18th, and then another meeting after that on July 25th, and then council goes into recess until September 12th. So more information is available to the public on the city's website with respect to specific agenda items. And to warn and caution council, the last meeting on July 25th will be a full plate. So we'll have a lot of items, as we typically do before going into summer recess. Mr. Mayor, that's it by way of city manager comments.
Thank you. No legislative issues at this time? No announcement of upcoming issues. No closed session, city attorney. At this time, then, we will adjourn the City of Thousand Oaks City Council and Redevelopment Agency to our next regular meeting at 6 p.m. on July 18th. Thank you.